"We're realigning to drive shareholder value," he said in a 5-minute meeting. "Your role is being eliminated effective immediately. My name's Mark Delaney. For 14 years, I built the Mid-Atlantic division of Crestline Workwear from the ground up into its highest-performing unit. Not with TED Talks or slick jargon, with consistency, trust, and real work. I personally managed our biggest accounts, knew their pressure points, their spouses' names, even their kids' birthdays. The relationships I built brought in over $8 million in annual contracts. Then Brandon showed up, our new CEO, 8 weeks on the job. Wharton MBA, tight fade, Italian suits, zero curiosity. Not once did he ask how we'd grown 19 year-over-year while the rest of the company stalled. Not once did he want to know why Brighton Mutual or Westline Realty, our top 2 clients, refused quarterly calls unless I was on them. He just pulled the lever. Security walked me back to my office to collect my things. Alicia from HR wouldn't meet my eyes. She'd been there 15 years longer than me. Tom, the CFO, passed by, paused, turned back. "Mark," he started, then stopped. Just patted my shoulder like I was his kid heading off to college. Then he kept walking. I packed in silence, family photos, the fishing trophy the Westline team gave me after our off-site in the Poconos, a handwritten thank you note from Dana over at Brighton for helping expedite a uniform rollout when her boss was under fire, 14 years reduced to a cardboard box. I nodded to security on the way out. No scene, no drama. Just walked to my car. In the rear view, I watched the glass tower fade behind me. For the first time in 14 years, I didn't feel the weight of 30 people's paychecks or millions in renewals on my shoulders. It should have felt freeing. But it didn't. It felt off. I joined Crestline when they were still shipping out of a warehouse in Baltimore. Back then, we were nobodies trying to get our foot in the door with regional banks and hospital systems. The Mid-Atlantic branch was bleeding money when they brought me in. I had 9 team members and 1 directive: turn it around or we shut it down. In those first 3 years, I personally drove to every prospect within a 100-mile radius, sat in their break rooms, walked their warehouses, listened to their frustrations with existing vendors' late shipments, sloppy QC, inconsistent sizing. I fixed all of it. My team grew first 15, then 25 people. We moved into a proper office in Columbia, just outside Baltimore. I promoted Janice from customer service to account management after watching her de-escalate a furious client on a Friday afternoon like it was nothing. I hired Keith straight out of RISD when he showed me a set of mock-ups that solved problems we didn't even know we had. When I joined Crestline, my son Dylan was 12. Today he's 26, working as an architect in Seattle. My wife Jennifer backed every late night, every weekend fire drill, every time I had to catch a red-eye to rescue an account. "We're building something that lasts," I used to tell her. She believed me. 3 CEOs came and went during my time. All of them respected what we'd built. The company evolved from a regional supplier to a serious national player. And our division, always leading in growth and retention. Then came the merger. Kestrel Group bought us out last year, brought in their own board, their own consultants. I didn't panic. Results are results, numbers tell the story. Or so I thought. But things shifted. Then Brandon Kerr showed up with his team of efficiency analysts, spreadsheets, and strategy decks in hand. They didn't understand the glue that held this business together. In meetings, they talked about CAC, churn rate, upsell opportunities. Not once did they ask about the people behind the logos. 2 weeks before I was let go, Brandon asked me for a report on all major accounts. I gave him everything: contract values, renewal windows, upsell paths. What I didn't include, because there's no cell for it on a spreadsheet, was how I'd driven 4 hours to attend the funeral of Brighton Mutual's procurement director's father, or how I'd personally QA-checked Westline's first bulk order at 2 a.m. to ensure perfection before their nationwide rollout. So when Brandon's assistant booked a 10-minute meeting, I knew. I'd seen this happen to others, just never thought it would be me. The next morning, I sat in my home office, staring at my phone. No pings, no emails, just silence. Jennifer walked in with coffee, squeezed my shoulder. "What's going through your head?" she asked. They don't know what they've just done, I said. And I wasn't mad. That's what caught me off guard. I felt something closer to clarity, something I hadn't felt in years. I opened my personal laptop. Not the company system, my own spreadsheet. 14 years of real relationships, names, direct lines, personal emails. At 9:30 a.m., the first call came in. It was Diane from Brighton Mutual. "Mark, we just got a company-wide email about some reorganization at Crestline. Tell me you're not part of that." I took a breath. "I was let go yesterday." The silence said everything. "Who's taking over the accounts?" Diane asked finally. "They didn't say," I replied. "I'm guessing one of Brandon's new hires." Another pause. I could practically hear her thinking. "Our renewal's up in 6 weeks," she said. "And Mark, I need to be candid. The board only signed off on staying with Crestline last cycle because of you. The pricing wasn't the lowest, but you always delivered. You caught problems before they even surfaced." I didn't respond right away. On the other end, I could hear her pen tapping against the desk. She always did that when she was weighing a tough decision. "I need to huddle with my team," she said finally. "Can I reach you at this number?" "Of course." After the call, I went downstairs and sat at the kitchen table. Jennifer was making sandwiches. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I think I will be." My phone buzzed, a text from Keith, my design lead. "Brandon called an emergency meeting, asked for client contacts tied to your accounts. No one's giving him clear answers. What's going on?" I set the phone down without replying. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Harold at Westline Realty, then Michael from Eastern Bank, then Stephanie from Bright Healthcare Systems. The conversations all followed the same script: shock, concern, and then the same quiet question: what happens now? I told them the truth. I didn't badmouth Crestline or Brandon, I just answered what I could. Yes, I'd been let go. No, I hadn't been informed of a transition plan. Yes, I was evaluating next steps. By that evening, I had 5 missed calls from Brandon Kerr. I didn't return any of them. That night, I opened my laptop, not to look at contracts or numbers, but something different. A blank spreadsheet I titled Options. I filled in the names of companies that had reached out over the years, competitors, suppliers, firms that had tried to poach me. I jotted down old emails from people who'd said, "If you ever leave Crestline, call me first." I even added a line for a possible consulting firm my own, because for 14 years I'd been building bridges for Crestline workwear. Maybe now. It was time to build something of my own. Now came the real decision: burn the bridges or build new ones of my own. I chose the latter. 3 days after my termination, Brandon's texts turned into phone calls. I let them go to voicemail. On day 4, I finally picked up. "Mark, we need to talk," he said. His voice was tighter than during our last meeting. "There are some concerns with several key accounts." "I'm sure your team can handle it," I replied evenly. "That's just it. Brighton Mutual is threatening to walk. They said the only reason they stayed with Crestline this long was because of you." As he talked, I watched a cardinal land on the feeder outside my office window. "That's their call to make," I said. "Look, maybe we moved too fast on the restructuring," Brandon said, lowering his voice. "The board's getting nervous about the revenue impact. Maybe we explore a short-term consulting agreement to help smooth the transition." For a second I considered it. Consulting would be easy money while I figured out my next move. But something about his sudden shift didn't sit right. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I need some time to think about it." That afternoon, I met Jerry Campbell for coffee, Crestline's former CFO, before the Kestrel merger. He'd been forced out not long before me, but he still had connections inside corporate. "Brandon's in full-blown panic mode," Jerry said, stirring his coffee. "Word is, Brighton and Westline both sent formal non-renewal letters." "Did they say why?" Jerry nodded. "Loss of key relationship personnel, leadership instability, corporate speak for 'we trusted Mark, and now he's gone.'" I sat back, feeling that strange combination of validation and worry for the team I left behind. "There's more," Jerry added. "Brandon told the board you're sabotaging client relationships, calling people, telling them to pull contracts." I set my coffee down. "That's not true." I haven't told anyone to do anything. I've answered their calls. Honestly, that's it. Well, that's not how Brandon's framing it. He's trying to build a case you violated your exit agreement, could even try to claw back your severance. On my drive home, Brandon called again. I let it ring out. When I listened to the voicemail later, his tone had changed completely. "Mark, I think there's been a misunderstanding." That's how Brandon started the voicemail. "We value everything you've built here. The board has authorized me to offer you a senior VP position, better title, better comp package than before. Call me back, we should talk." That evening, I got a call from Daniel Thompson, CEO of Summit Ridge Outfitters. They're smaller than Crestline but well run. He'd tried to recruit me twice in the past. "I heard what went down at Crestline," he said. "Their loss. My offer still stands, but this time I'd like to sweeten it. Senior VP, equity stake, full control of your client book." I told him I needed a few days. I meant it. That night, an email landed in my inbox from Crestline's legal department. It accused me of violating a non-solicitation agreement. The tone was aggressive, hinting at legal action if I didn't immediately stop interfering with company relationships. I didn't reply. Just forwarded it to my lawyer friend, Paul Henderson. The next morning, he called. "This threat is flimsy at best," he said. "They're trying to rattle you. I've reviewed your file. There's no non-solicitation clause. The only thing you signed was a standard non-compete, 6 months, and even that doesn't prevent clients from following you. Just bars you from going to another company in the same space for a bit." I remembered signing that contract 14 years ago when Crestline was still run by people who looked you in the eye. Back then, the CEO said plainly, "This just protects us from training you and losing you to a competitor the next week." There was nothing about clients, nothing about relationships. "So I haven't done anything illegal?" I asked. "Not a thing," Paul said. "In fact, if they try to press this, you could counter-claim for wrongful termination. No notice, no transition plan for a senior exec. Courts don't like that." I thanked him and hung up just as another email came in. It was from Janice. Subject line, "You should see this." Attached was an internal slide deck, time-stamped 2 weeks before I was let go. It was Brandon's full restructuring plan. Clear as day, my role had been flagged for elimination, no matter what my performance was. The slides called for replacing experienced staff with cost-efficient junior hires, raising prices on legacy clients by 15 post-renewal, and consolidating all client relationships under a single growth operations team. So that was the plan all along. Not about strategy, not about results. Just a numbers game. On slide 12, a note caught my eye. "Relationship-dependent business model presents significant risk. Transition to system-dependent model required to maximize margins." They hadn't fired me because I wasn't performing. They fired me because I was succeeding in a way that didn't fit their spreadsheet worldview. Worse still was what came next. A section titled Team Realignment Targets. Keith, Janice, 3 others from my division, all marked for termination. Scheduled to be let go after I was out of the way. I printed the presentation and sat with it at the kitchen table. Jennifer read over my shoulder. "They're planning to dismantle everything you built," she said quietly, "and pin the fallout on me," I added. My phone buzzed. Another message from Brandon. "Board meeting tomorrow. Need to discuss reconciliation ASAP. Please call." I set the phone down and looked again at the last slide. Projected margins, 22 assumptions. All clients would remain, despite 15 price hikes and slashed service teams. It was a fantasy, a house of cards. I called Daniel at Summit Ridge. "I'm in," I said, "but there's one condition. I bring my core team 5 people, non-negotiable." "Done," he said without hesitation. "When can you start?" 2 weeks, and I'll need official offer letters for all of us today." That evening, I called Keith, then Janice, then the rest of the team. I told them everything, the restructuring plan, the layoffs, the names on the list. I told them about Summit Ridge's offer. All 5 said yes before I even finished speaking. That night, for the first time since I'd been let go, I slept. I didn't return Brandon's calls or emails. Instead, I scheduled lunches and coffee meetings with our top clients, not to pitch, not to poach, just to check in. As a friend, I met Diane from Brighton Mutual near her office in Bethesda. We're not renewing with Crestline, she said before even picking up the menu. The question is where we go next. I can't solicit your business right now, I said carefully. Legally, I have to be mindful. She smiled. I understand. But hypothetically, if you were to join a firm that offered similar services, we'd be very interested in following you. By the end of the week, I'd had that same conversation 5 times, with Brighton, Westline, Eastern Bank, Bright Healthcare, and one more major client. None of them had received a single call from Crestline since I was let go. Not from Brandon. Not from anyone. Meanwhile, Summit Ridge sent formal offer letters to the team. One by one, they submitted their resignations. Quietly, professionally. The following Monday, I was in the garage working on my old '72 Chevy when a Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Brandon got out, phone in hand, stress written all over him. Mark, we need to talk, he said. This has gone too far. The board's breathing down my neck. Senior staff resigning. Clients threatening to pull contracts. I set down the wrench and wiped my hands on a rag. That sounds challenging, I said. He blinked. We're willing to make you another offer. Executive level, total freedom to rebuild your team. I shook my head. Appreciate it, but I've accepted a position elsewhere. He stood there, stunned. You don't want to hear the terms? No, I said, because you never understood the value of what we built. Then I turned back to the truck and got back to work. His face turned red. You're joining a competitor, Brandon said, voice rising. That violates your non-compete. Summit Ridge isn't on the restricted list, I replied calmly. Paul Henderson reviewed my agreement yesterday. You're talking to lawyers now? Brandon, be reasonable. Whatever they're offering, we'll top it. I shut the hood of the Chevy and turned to him. It's not about the money. It never was. Then what do you want? Name it. I looked him in the eye for the first time that day. I wanted respect for 14 years of building something that mattered. I wanted a real conversation, not a 10-minute walk-off. I wanted my team protected, not lined up for elimination, just to juice the margins on some quarterly report. His expression shifted the moment he realized I knew about the restructuring deck. That was just a draft, a scenario planning document. Goodbye, Brandon. I walked past him toward the house. He called after me. The board won't let this go. We'll sue you. Summit Ridge. Everyone involved. I turned back one last time. You can try, but ask yourself first, what's going to cost shareholders more? Letting me walk away quietly, or a very public legal fight explaining why your top clients and best people all left at once? He had no answer. A week later, I started at Summit Ridge. 2 weeks after that, the non-compete period expired. Within a month, 4 of Crestline's 5 largest clients had signed new contracts with Summit Ridge, every one of them requesting me by name. I hadn't called a single one, hadn't badmouthed Crestline to the press. Didn't need to. 6 months into the new role, I was in my office reviewing our quarterly performance when Daniel knocked. You'll want to see this, he said, handing me his tablet. A headline from Financial Insight filled the screen. Crestline Workwear CEO Brandon Kerr resigns amid revenue collapse. The article detailed missed projections, down 18 company-wide. The Mid-Atlantic division, my former territory, had lost nearly 40 of its revenue. The board had accepted Brandon's resignation, effective immediately. I handed the tablet back. You're not surprised, Daniel said. Hard to build client trust on spreadsheets, I replied. That afternoon, a LinkedIn message came in from Tom, Crestline's CFO. Board's meeting tomorrow. Recovery's on the agenda. Your name came up. Would you consider a conversation? I didn't reply. Instead, I finished final edits on our Q2 presentation for Brighton Mutual. Our team had delivered ahead of schedule. Feedback was glowing. Diane had already introduced us to 2 new leads inside her firm's network. The next day, Jerry Campbell called. Thought you'd want to know. Kestrel Group's trying to sell Crestline. Stock's down 22 since you left. Any buyers? None yet. Word is they're trying to reach out through intermediaries. The board thinks you're the only one who can rebuild client confidence. I thanked Jerry and got back to work. Later that week, I took the team out for lunch to celebrate back-to-back quarters of growth. Keith shared early sketches for a new product line. Janice presented client feedback metrics. We talked about expansion plans for Summit Ridge. No one mentioned Crestline. That evening, I received a direct email from Eleanor Barnes, Chair, Crestline Board Subject, Request for Conversation. Message, Mark, the situation has become untenable. We made a grave error in judgment. Would you consider returning to Crestline as CEO? Complete operational autonomy, significant equity stake, board seat. Name your terms, Eleanor had written. I closed my laptop without replying. The next morning, I called a team meeting at Summit Ridge. I've been approached about returning to Crestline, I said, straight to the point. Wanted you all to hear it from me first. I'm declining the offer. Keith nodded, figured they'd try eventually. Janice smiled. Too little, too late. Exactly, I said, we're building something better here. That afternoon, I sent a short email to Eleanor Barnes. Thank you for the offer. I'm honored, but I must respectfully decline. I'm fully committed to my current team and our mission. I wish Crestline the best going forward. 3 days later, the news hit the wires. Summit Ridge Outfitters acquires Crestline's Mid-Atlantic division in strategic asset sale. The press release framed it as a reunification of key talent with long-standing client relationships. Daniel had negotiated the deal, quietly paying pennies on the dollar for what had once been Crestline's crown jewel. The board had run out of options: sell it to us, or watch it implode. I never had to retaliate. The market handled that part. Exactly 1 year after my dismissal, I drove past the old Crestline office in Columbia. The Summit Ridge logo now hung over the entrance where the Crestline sign used to be. Same building, different story inside. We'd brought back some of the staff who'd been laid off under Brandon. We'd rebuilt 3 more client relationships that had gone cold after my exit. Today, the division was generating more revenue under Summit Ridge than it ever had under Crestline. I parked across the street and watched as employees filtered out at the end of the day. Some old faces, some new. They looked energized, confident, like they belonged. When I got home, Jennifer was in the kitchen finishing dinner. I drove by the old office today, I told her. She paused. Nostalgia or closure? Closure, I think. Did you realize it's been exactly a year? She smiled. I did. That's why I made your favorite tonight. Over dinner, Dylan called from Seattle. His firm had just landed a major commercial project. How's the new gig going, Dad? He asked. Good, I said. Building something that'll last. The same words I'd used for 14 years at Crestline. But this time, I meant it. Later that evening, I got a text from Jerry Campbell. Just in Gravora Group acquired the remaining divisions of Crestline. Entire brand is being folded into their operations. I set the phone down. Outside, the porch light flicked on. The house was warm, quiet. It was over and just beginning. Clean sweep. Nothing left of the original company. I set my phone down and stepped out onto the deck. The spring air was warm, full of promise. I thought about Brandon for a moment. Wondered where he'd landed. Hoped maybe he'd learned something. Though honestly, I doubted it. I thought about all the years I spent building bridges for a company that never valued them. The late nights, missed family dinners, postponed vacations. The sacrifices were real, but so were the relationships. And in the end, those relationships didn't stay behind. They followed me, not because I asked, but because we'd built something authentic. Something no spreadsheet could quantify. No strategic restructuring could erase. The next morning, I arrived early at Summit Ridge. Quarterly projections 30 above target. Client retention 97, highest in company history. Daniel stopped by my office. Board approved your proposal, he said. Employee ownership program rolls out next quarter. Keith and Janice are heading up the implementation team. I nodded. They'll do it right. Daniel paused at the doorframe. You know, when all this started, I thought we were just bringing in a strong operator with some big-name accounts. I didn't realize we were getting a new way of doing business. Relationships over transactions, I said, always. After he left, I opened my desk drawer. Inside was the old fishing trophy, the one the Westline Realty team gave me after that retreat in the Poconos. I placed it on the shelf, right next to a new photo. My team at Summit Ridge gathered after our first team retreat. I didn't need revenge, didn't need some dramatic vindication. I just needed to build something that would last. And this time, I had.